Chapter 17 is on 3 different functional groups. It's on carboxylic acids, esters, and amides. And we are going to start off with these two sections, 17.1 and 17.2. We're talking about the structure of these functional groups. So I'm going to give you a reminder on what each of these 3 functional groups looks like. And then we're going to talk about how to name them, nomenclature. Although we are not going to learn how to name all 3 of the functional groups, just carboxylic acids and esters. So let's take a look at the 3 functional groups side by side because they're very similar. It's very easy to get them confused. The carboxylic acid functional group has a carbon-oxygen double bond, and attached to that carbon there is an OH. And what is over here on the other side could be pretty much anything. Typically, it's going to be a carbon chain. So this over here is usually a carbon chain, but it could also be just a hydrogen. So next, the ester functional group is very similar. So it's also a carbon-oxygen double bond. And to the left, we also have that, we're going to abbreviate it R, and that is also usually a carbon chain. But it could be a hydrogen, just a single hydrogen all by itself. Now here's where the ester and the carboxylic acid are different. Instead of an OH, the ester has an OR, and this R must be a carbon chain. It cannot be a hydrogen. If you think about what if that R was a hydrogen, this is what the molecule would look like, and notice that that is a carboxylic acid, so we would call it a carboxylic acid. So that's why out here, this on the oxygen, this must be a carbon chain, cannot be a hydrogen. And then last but not least, we have the amide, which is also a carbon-oxygen double bond, and I'm drawing it on the left side, R, which is also usually a carbon chain, but it can be a hydrogen. Amides have, to the right, instead of an oxygen, they have a nitrogen. And that nitrogen has 2 things attached to it, which we're going to call R2. And those 2 things also, usually carbon chains, they could also be hydrogens. So no restrictions on the R's in an amide. They could be anything. We're going to learn how to name only the carboxylic acids and the esters. So we're not going to learn how to name amides. And we're going to first look at naming the carboxylic acids. And then we're going to go to a worksheet and practice some carboxylic acid naming. Then we'll come back to these notes and look at the naming of the esters. In general, the naming is similar to naming other molecules that we've already learned about. So our first job will be to find the longest carbon chain. And when we're looking for that carbon chain, we want it to include the carboxylic acid group. So it has to include the carbon-oxygen double bond with the OH. I'm going to find the longest chain that includes that. We're going to number the carbon chain, just like we would normally do. And when we do this, we are going to start at the carbon-oxygen double bond. So it is number 1 in our numbering system. But we're going to leave the number 1 out of its name, which I'm going to write down at the end of our steps here because that's where it's going to be important for us to remember to leave out that 1 when we're actually putting the name together. After we get our carbon chain numbered, then we will locate and name our substituents just like usual. And once we have our substituents located and named, we'll put the name of the molecule together. So this will be listing the substituents first in alphabetical order. Once we get all the substituents listed, we then move on to naming the parent chain. When we do this, we do not give the location, which is a 1 always. Do not give the location of the carboxylic acid group. Name the parent chain, the longest carbon chain. And like usual, we're going to modify the ending of the name of the parent chain. To do that modification, we are going to drop the E from the parent chain, and we are going to replace that with oic acid. So just to give you, just looking at the modification of a parent chain, let's say that we had ethane. To convert that name into the name of a carboxylic acid, we would drop the E and replace it with oic and acid, which is a second word. So this is going to be a 2-word name. So these rules are kind of overwhelming. Let's go to our first worksheet and practice naming carboxylic acids.